when we talk to companies, very often, the word innovation comes up, as innovation is the big thing that startups are doing. They're innovating, they're disrupting, they're creating something new. And for many companies, innovation is actually something pretty weird. It's a bit like driving a car with a foggy windshield, and they're trying to scratch free a little space so they can see the road ahead. They're not hitting anything, but they're actually kind of passing by and they're really not getting anywhere. And then there's the other companies, the other people who see innovation as something that you have put a huge effort to make sure you're making the right turn. You're going exactly where you need to be and where you have to end up in order to make money. In reality, innovation, and in reality, starting up a company is actually a bit like this. You want to have a clear road ahead. You want to know exactly where you're going. You want to have access to all the information that you need to make educated decisions and educated educated issues on where to go, how to invest, what you're going to use it, but you have to have this in a very curated way. So I'm going to bring a thinking to the stage today that merges two things, design and innovation. And if you want to bring design and innovation and the best of two worlds together, it would make sense, first of all, to look into what is actually design. Design is basically everywhere, and it's basically everything. It's around us all day, it's the clothes we wear, it's the products we use, it's the technology we apply, it's the services we engage in. And in this part, design used to be a lot about a thing, a product, a physical thing, or about an interface. But as a matter of fact, the most important thing about design is that design is human. And it is about humans because design has changed in the way that design is shaping business and shaping innovation going forward. Design, by its origin, used to be a lot about more. More products, more variety, more colors, more forms, more functions. Nowadays it has shifted a lot, because nowadays design is a lot about better. Better solutions, better products, more meaningful interactions, more meaningful services. So it's no longer just about the form and the function of something. It's no longer just about colors or materials that we're using in these products. Design has changed an entire process, and design has changed how companies today are looking into applying innovation and how startups actually going into markets. Because today design is about much, much more than all of that. It's about the why, it's about the what, it's about the who. First and foremost, it's about us, it's about people. Design is human, as I said earlier, so it is about humans. And if it is about humans, it's about our appetite for experiences. Because in today's world, we're not loyal to a product, we're loyal to the experience that we get from a product. We're not loyal to a service, we're loyal to the experience we get from a service. And design has changed that. So it's no longer about just the color, the material, the form, the UI, anything like that. It's about the experience we're designing for humans. And this is ever more important in an innovation environment or in the world of startups that are competing in the exact same space. The purpose of design from a business perspective, if you bring that together, if you look into how design's value is changing in setting up a new product, a new service, it is very often also not just about what we should buy as a consumer, it's the reason behind. It's why we should buy that. What's the purpose that's deeper, that's more meaningful, that's engaging me into a service that is actually becoming part of my lifestyle and things like that. So when we talk to companies, and the same thing applies for startups, they will always ask, not just what are you doing, but why is that you're doing it. And so you have to apply this human-centric perspective in order to fully engage into this part. So why does that matter? Why is that even important? Because we're at a startup conference, we're trying to change the world with new products, with new technologies, with new services. Why does it matter that we look into human-centric design to create the next breakthrough innovation? It's pretty simple. It's a very simple rule that we have to look after. Why that is so important? Because less is the new more. In reality, if you look into the environment that people are spending their money in and how they engage in a world of products, of services, of applications, we will own fewer products, but they are better, they are smarter, they're doing more things at once for us. They have a better connection to the rest of our lifestyle. We will engage and connect to fewer but more meaningful services because they connect so many different things and create a portfolio, an environment around us that I'm going to do more than that service that I've ever done before. We're going to have fewer but much longer and much deeper brand relationships because these brands, again, can do more than they could do before, and so I will have less brands that I'm going to get my life connected to, but the relationships I have with these brands are going to be deeper, they're going to be longer, and they're going to be more meaningful. So when you innovate, when you create the next big thing, the next startup that conquers the world, you're still competing. You're competing not only with the big corporations that are trying to keep pace with you, you're not only competing with the disruptors that are going to disrupt the disrupted, meaning the guys that are just waiting behind you to do the same thing, just better, but you're also competing for attention, and you're fighting for relevance. You're fighting for relevance in a consumer's world, in a consumer's life, that's so much driven by experiences that actually make it very difficult for us to enter that ecosystem of the person if we're focusing on the technology, if we're focusing on the product, and if we completely forget about the experience behind it. And why is that relevant for us? Because of course we're innovating for one purpose. You try to sell, you try to engage with people, you try to have them use your product, your service, your application. When you're fighting for relevance, you're actually fighting for revenue. Because in the world that we're living in today, in this world of connected experiences that dominate our lifestyle, only relevance is going to be revenue. It's not enough to have a fancy product. It's not enough to just have technology that is super cool, but that basically allows the experience. The reason for this is quite simple. There is no market for stupid. It's not enough to have great technology if the experience fails. It's not enough to think about a wonderful product if the distribution channel lacks any connectivity to the reality of people's life. Again, there is no market for stupid, no matter how innovative a startup is, how innovative an idea or product, an application is. If the experience for humans isn't there, you're not competing in the same space, and you will end up in a market that you don't want to be in. So if we understand the value, the basic value of design as applying a human-centric perspective into creating experiences for humans, then let's take up the second word that was part of my presentation today, innovation. So we've seen what design is, now let's take a look into what innovation is. I'm pretty sure most of you guys are familiar with this model, like the innovation cube. Let me explain it to those that haven't seen it before, what it means. In the lower left corner, you have existing users, you have new users that you're targeting. And please replace user with customer or something else. On the left side, you have existing offerings and you have new offerings that you're bringing out to the market. In the front row, you have existing business models, prescription models, sales models, distribution channels. In the background, you have new business models, something that has not been used before to make revenue. And you can categorize each and every innovation in this box, right? So if you take in an existing offering and you just beautify it and you bring it to people that already use that kind of service, your innovation is probably incremental. If you're trying to do it in a different way, you might be evolutionary, even revolutionary, or you come up with an entire new business model. I'm just going to run a few examples by you to make sure that we're all on the same page, because this is quite important. If you look into this innovation in a supermarket, that is actually not innovation, right? That's a steak and there's a beer and it's packaged together and I can buy both at once. If we look into this from our modern perspective, that's probably incremental. That's a nice selling idea, but that's not really, what we're calling innovation. If we think about all the mobility offerings that we get from the car manufacturers today, especially very popular in Europe nowadays. So in this case, Mercedes-Benz and its smart car brand offering cars in the city that you basically pick up and you pay by the minute. Then you have already basically existing users, but you have new offerings, right? You bring an entire new way out because you're not selling cars, but you're selling access to mobility. So you end up probably in this evolutionary part. And we can debate if it is on the right-hand side or on the left-hand side. If we look into what Airbnb did a couple of years ago, it's pretty obvious that that is the combination of all of that. That is new users, that's people that usually would not potentially rent out their apartment because they've never had the ability to do that. That's new offerings, peer-to-peer, and that's actually more than that because it's a new business model. It's enabling people to sell property or to rent property and to sell nights at their apartment to people that they would never have connected for, and it's based on an entire new revenue model. So all of a sudden we're talking about this really, really revolutionary new business model, and that is important to understand where innovation is based in, because if you bring together design and innovation, we want to make sure we do it in a meaningful way, right? So if we understand where we are with this in this model, how do we bring together design and how do we bring together the principles, the idea of disrupting a market, of innovation? Let's try to take a look into this, because in most cases when you're thinking about innovation, when you think about startups, you have a ton of great ideas. You're very good if you can frame it into one single idea that basically stands out and is easily explained, but you probably end up with a lot of great stuff in your mind. You're trying to somehow frame it. And you come up with stuff that makes a lot of sense from a technology perspective, but you also come up with stuff that you haven't solved yet on how to engage people into the experiences and stuff like that. So the way to do it, the way forward, is to basically think and act like a designer. And I'm going to show you the 5 steps that you can do when you want to run a startup, when you want to come up with a new business idea, on how to actually do it as if you were a designer. First and foremost, start with research. If you have your idea, it's great that you have that. Keep it in your mind and then try to research. What is in the market? How are consumers using similar services? Who am I disrupting? What is the business model behind, and where do I get my money from? Make your research and have that ready, because that has a lot to do on how you're going to pitch that to investors going forward. Then take your idea, apply everything you have found in the research, and then create your future vision. Your first idea that you have to launch a startup is not a vision. A vision is to bring your idea together with the business value, with the distribution channel, with the ability to create an experience and to deliver a brand to it. So you frame your future vision. You say, my startup ABC will do this in that way. I'm going to disrupt that market. This is who I'm going to work with. This is how I'm going to distribute this idea and things like that. To take it into a vision. And then comes the super important part, something that up until here it's quite obvious, right? And many people would have done the same. Next thing up, let's do an experience roadmap. And that's something very simple. Take, let's say, 5 or 10 different users of your service or your product and let them run through the entire product experience, step by step by step, signing up for the experience, maybe getting their hands on a product if it is a product, or having the first digital encounter. Everything from installing an app to unpacking, unboxing the product if you're in that area. Make that experience roadmap, take 5, 6, 7 typical customers and run this whole thing through. Why? You will see where your idea is failing, and you will see where you need to put focus and empathy on creating a meaningful experience. Then you go to it and you design it, you build it, you bring it to life. Then you try it and you evaluate it and you throw it away. And you do the same thing again. And whatever you find out during that part, you make better. You never, ever, ever bring your first version to market in that regard. Try it, test it, bring people to use it. Do it with your friends, your family, your peers. Run it by an investor, whatever you want to do. Make sure you see all the failures, because 99% of the things you're going to do, or 99% of the startups that you want to do that work with, you guys will fail in your very first version. And that's normal, because we as designers fail all the time before we get to the right solution. That's why that is a process that's coming from the design world. And eventually, when you're ready with this, get it out into the world with the ambition to change the world. You're doing a startup for a reason. It's not just to copycat something that's already existing and trying to make money with it. It's something to make it better. It's to be, in the forefront of innovation in an industry that hasn't been innovative for a while, or because the product doesn't exist. If we have that process and we follow it through from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the loop, there are 5 rules that you will see and that you will hopefully take into this process that will help you to really design the next groundbreaking innovation. That's something that comes from our experience, where we do the same, because in many cases we're doing nothing else than also being a startup. We're just doing a startup for a company rather than doing a startup for ourselves. And there are 5 rules that we came across with over the last 5 to 10 years that are really meaningful and that help us to do this a little bit better. For the first one, let's take a quick trip back in time to 2009. Many of you were still in school. I've seen so many young faces here that I feel pretty old. But in 2009, something remarkable happened. Google came up and they released turn-by-turn navigation on an app. And they disrupted the industry of GPS navigation overnight. That industry had no clue what they were doing. They had absolutely no clue. Because their investment was always in technology. They should have been able to invest into the experience as well, and this is why they didn't fail. This is why they failed. They didn't invest into technology. Let's run a quick 2-minute movie to show you what they could have done in order to react as a hardware provider to what Google did.
The beat of the urban jungle pounds faster and faster every day. As our lives become more connected, the knowledge we gain becomes greater and greater. But we must utilize this data to improve the lives we live, the journeys we take, and the things we love. But we're only just getting started. So what if our longest days could be short, our toughest days easy, our experiences greater, and our lives safer? What if we could navigate the urban jungle with one tap, one turn, one push of a button? What if this newfound freedom could take us to far-off places we've never been before and show us more of the things we love to see and do? What if travel became something we could all look forward to? With cars that connect you, screens that inform you, and apps that entertain you every step of the way. What if every city you visited, every place you loved, and everything that you enjoyed could be collected and stored for your future use? What if everything we experience could be joined together, making our lives simpler, our journeys smarter, and our days greater? What if we were all here?
So, unfortunately, they didn't do this. What they could have done is they could have taken the experience as the key differentiator between them and Google and created an entire ecosystem around me navigating the urban jungle, about me going abroad, about collecting all my memories I have along this trip. So, the first rule, focus on the experience. The technology is only the enabler. It's never the driver. The driver is the experience people have with a service, with an app, with the technology, with the product. The technology is the enabler that makes it happen, but it's never the purpose why we do that. Second rule, as I said earlier, do your research and do it right. Research is not just doing a little bit of desktoping and Googling and trying to figure out, okay, there's two companies that do the same. It's understanding what's driving humans to do something. It's the understanding of emotions. It's understanding of change in behavior, things like that. Do your research because your outcome will be much better than you expected before. The third rule is quite simple, right? Very obvious. Make it feasible. But actually what's more important is then throw it away and do it again. Because as I said earlier, chances are you're trying to bring something to life because of speed and not because of having a meaningful experience created for humans. So make it feasible, then test it with people you trust, throw it away and do it again. The outcome will be 10 times better than the first thing you did. Rule number 4, that's quite obvious for startups. And I don't have to say that rule here in this room because we're in a startup environment. But believe me, I have to say that rule when we're working with some of the largest companies in the world. Break rules. Break rules and then break business models. You would not believe how scared these big corporations are for going into the revolutionary innovation space. Because it's a new business model, it's a new environment. They have to break rules, they have to break silos in corporations. You have the power to do that from day one, and you have to do that. You have to challenge everything you know about a market, everything you know about a product, everything you know about a service, and then you have to break the rules that exist, and you have to break the business model and come up with something new. And if you do that, you will end up where Airbnb ended up in my model over there. And then we have rule number 5. And that's actually, to me personally, it's the most important rule. Because I've been talking a lot about the experiences that we give to humans if we create products and services in a certain way. And the most important rule is that whatever you do, however you do it, design like you give a damn. It is about creating something that your heart burns for, that you want to have, that you're willing to cry for, that you're willing to bleed for if that's necessary. Design like you give a damn. It's your chance of a lifetime to do something big and then take it forward. What we always say to people that work with our company is, you're not just a designer, you're changing people's lives. And that's the reality. So you have to design simply like you give a damn. These 5 rules, some of them very obvious to a startup environment, some of them maybe a bit different because they come from a designer perspective, are something that you can simply take home with and try to apply when you think about your next invention, your next groundbreaking new thing that you want to bring to the market. And don't be afraid of applying them. Because as I said earlier, you can throw stuff away and do it over again. Believe me, most big and beautiful ideas, they started pretty small and pretty ugly. But they became big and beautiful because people believed in it and because people changed them over and over again to eventually make them so fantastic that they changed the world. So don't be afraid of failure. Failure is nothing that will hinder you from entering the market. But be ready to accept that you will fail in the beginning and that your idea has to evolve over and over and over again. And if you're there, then you go out and change the world. Quite simply because it's yours. You make the rules, you break the business models, you break the barriers, you disrupt industries, and all of that because you think of humans first. Of humans and the experiences they have today, the experiences they want to have tomorrow, the environment that you're competing with, and the ability for you to be agile, fast, and create meaningful things that people love, that people will engage with, and that people want to have in their life. Remember, you're competing in a space where less is going to be more. So you've got to be better and better and better than everything that's already in the market. Technology will not do that. Experiences for humans will do that. Thank you very much.